Peace and greetings, you guys. What's good? It's your girl Nye here, back for another 31 Days of Tarot 2019. This is day 7, and this is your most worked tarot deck of 2018 and why. So I'm gonna give you guys a top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a top 5, and I'll tell you why. So first and foremost, my studies have been in Thoth system for 2018, so the Thoth deck lands in my top 5 worked decks of 2018. Very, very beautiful deck. I love it so much. I've learned so much in 2018, and as long as this thing don't have borders on it, I'm pretty good with reading it. I feel like the borders really cloud up the artwork and the intricacy of the details in this deck. So if you plan on getting this one, I would highly recommend getting a large one, if at all. So the Thoth, it's pretty. I think my kind of selection has been kind of pretty boring this year, because if you guys follow me anyways, Tabula Mundi hands down has been a very that fell out has been a very highly used deck of 2018. It is a Thoth based deck, and again, because I was on the Thoth train, and I am say friends with Mel and Susie and rocking and listening to their podcast, you know, I gained a lot of insights. Like, this deck is what made me want to learn more about the Thoth system, because I felt very intuitive. I got very intuitive reads from this deck right off the beginning, right off rip. So, you know, I thank Mel for opening that wormhole for me. Y'all saw that synchronicity, right? Opening that wormhole for me while I, you know, it just all synchronized very much for me. Yeah. So, and if you guys are curious what's going on here, when I went to my trip to Massachusetts, I had everybody who was there sign my deck, because with their deacon. So now I'll always remember where my friends' birthdays are. I'll know what's coming up. But, you know, I think one thing about tarot decks that's really interesting, I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking real fast, is that, you know, I learned to try not to be so precious with my decks, because if you're too precious with them, it's like I won't use them, right? I think when I first started collecting, I was kind of like, oh, it costs so much, or, you know, it's so nice, I don't want to mess it up. But the preciousness returns with use and experience and stories you can tell with a deck that you've used. You know, like this one's traveled with me, this one has my friend's signatures on it, and, you know, esoterically it makes, you know, it goes with their, you know, deacon sun signs and all this kind of stuff there. So anyways, the Tabula Mundi was definitely up there in usage. Pam's Vintage Tarot. I do have a regular size version of this, but and I have a small Tabula Mundi as well. And so I would alternate between Pam's Vintage and the Tabula Mundi in minima, as my purse deck, like the deck that stayed in my purse and traveled with me. So this one has gotten a lot of love, and again, learning the Thoth system, coming from Rider-Waite, you know, it was important for me to have one of these decks. Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. It was important for me to have a, you know, a classic Rider-Waite Smith deck available to me to compare and contrast and all of that stuff. So so Pam's Vintage is number 3. And before, and as I was curious about the Tarot of the Holy Light, it got used a lot too. in the context that I was curious, was it Thoth based? Was it Rider-Waite-Smith based? I know it's a continental tarot deck, but I was trying to figure out what that meant and all that kind of stuff. So there's suggestive well, it's not suggestive, but there's nudity in this. So if you have kids, I just kind of heads up before I flip them. Very beautiful deck, very well researched deck. I mean, this deck is super smart. But I used this a lot prior to me really getting to the core and kind of realizing like this doesn't really fit with that. The astrological correspondences on the minors are a little bit different. So I had to I used it a lot in the very, very beginning of 2018. But I kind of put it to the side. But I did study a lot with this deck too. So this one was up there. Ooh. There's a lot going on these cards. And it's really good for when you have, like, for me, it's like when I have time to sit down and read, it makes more sense than if I'm trying to do like a quick daily pull or something like that. So yeah. Tarot of the Holy Light by Christine Payne Towler, which will probably get a lot of use next year, seeing as that I feel like I have a good handle on the Thoth deck. And last but not least, oh wait, Thoth, Tabula Mundi, Tarot of the Holy Light, Pam's Vintage. So I'm gonna give y'all two more because we need the two more. All right, so Flamand Vandembore by Pablo Robledo. This little deck right here has given me some of the most beautiful Marseille readings that I've ever really experienced. Like, besides Tarot de la Luna, Triumph de la Luna, which surprisingly didn't make it on my top, 5 or top 6 decks that I used this year. And this was more recently acquired. So it was crazy to me, like how often, like how it came up in my frequency board. But there's something about this deck that really speaks to me as a reader and just works. It's fun to read with this deck. So I'll do a flip through of my Marseille decks and all that stuff later on, but that's that guy there. So I can't leave out the Marseille deck that I use the most. And I really thought my Dodal was gonna win, but this one ended up winning, so I was kind of like, okay. And last but definitely not least on my top used decks is the New Era Elements Tarot. I did a review of this. I'll leave it below in the description box. But the New Era Elements for me, just, I want to say that the mixture of the images in this deck between the people, the animals, the mundane, it's very exoteric. It's very like non-esoteric. And I think for me, I found it refreshing since I had been in kind of this wormhole of very overtly esoteric decks, and working with esoteric decks, that this just kind of like, for a tarot deck, I feel, even though this is Thoth based too, which is crazy, right? It's just, it works intuitively, and you don't have to know all those esoteric things for this deck to work for you. And I think that's what I really like about it, is that you can go there with it if you want to, but you don't have to. And it's like a sepia deck. There's a combination of humans, animals, mech, and I think the artwork is beautiful. So yeah, I use this deck a lot. Some of the images are very stark, but you know what? I'm not like sheltered and stuff from the world. Sometimes I need that brutal truth, that brutal upfront kind of honesty. And so that's what this deck provided for me. So these are kind of my top 5 decks. I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but I've been keeping track of my deck usage just to see what I lean towards, because again, I'm trying to curate my collection and as much as I have been trying, I keep getting gifts, so it's kind of hard to figure it all out. So keeping track helps me see what I'm reaching for, what's my style, and be able to kind of look back through patterns and kind of see, okay, these work for me. I don't really reach for these. Try the ones I don't reach for and see if they work, and if they don't, gift them and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, I'm rambling. So thank you for watching another 31 days of tarot, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.